Hello, and thank you for checking out Spring Branch Community Church online. Whether you are a member here but you're unable to be in person for some reason, or maybe you're checking out churches and just wanted to see what we're about, we are glad that you are watching us online. As you listen, do me a favor, go into the description of this video and click on the link for our Connect card. That's a way for us to be able to know how we can connect with you and help you on your spiritual journey. I hope the following message is helpful for you and applicable to your life. Go ahead and grab your Bible if you have it with you and turn to 1 Samuel chapter 18. 1 Samuel chapter 18. If you didn't bring it with you, we'll put the words up on the screen. While you're turning there, let me just acknowledge something that I've been hearing from several people in our church. We just experienced a lot of political violence in our nation and in the world, from Minnesota to Utah, from Gaza to the Ukraine. These are just troubling times and sad events that are happening. So if you're someone who would just like to pray with someone, just like to process this, just like to talk, or just talk this through a little bit, I've interacted with our elder team. We had a meeting about this the other day, and so some of our elders at the end of service, we'll kind of position ourselves around the front. And if you have kids in the child care, your kids will be fine. We would love for you to just take some time and come and talk with us, and we'd be happy to pray with you. So feel free to stay around after service, and we'll take as much time as we can with you. But with that said, open up to 1 Samuel 18, and many of you are there by now. Otherwise, we'll have it on the screen, and let's dig into the text for today. 1 Samuel 18. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David. That's an interesting detail in the story. We'll come back to that a little bit later. As well as his armor and his sword and his bow and his belt. So he hands these things to David. Verse 5, and David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over the men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, also in the sight of Saul's servants. As they were coming home, when David returned from striking down the Philistine, talking about Goliath, the women came out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet with Saul with tambourines and songs of joy and musical instruments. And the women sang to one another as they celebrated, Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very angry. This saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed thousands. What more can he have but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day on. Well, things just got a little dicey in the text. As we were reading, I'll just introduce the text this way. We're introduced to three different characters. So if you missed the last couple of weeks when we introduced some of these guys, let me just run through it again. First off, we meet Saul. Saul is the king of Israel at this point. And not only is he the king, but he is the first king that this nation has ever had. And so, no pressure, but he's sort of setting the stage for what the culture is going to be, what the laws are going to be, what the expectations of this nation, what is this nation going to look like based on his values and his policies. But he's also setting up the first dynasty. And so his hope, of course, like any king, I imagine, is that one day his son is going to take over and he's going to walk into the palace one day and see his portrait from his days as a king and his son's portrait, Jonathan, and maybe his grandsons if he lives that long. He's hoping for a dynasty, which brings us to the next character in the story, Jonathan. Jonathan is Saul's son. He's the prince, of course. He's the heir to the throne. And so far in this story, we've seen, if you read back, that Jonathan, he's really a no-brainer to be the next king. He has leadership abilities, fighting abilities. He's a wise and a brave and a courageous person, so he's a no-brainer for the next king. But then we have this guy named David. He's a young guy. Basically, at this point in the story, he's a nobody who's very quickly becoming quite popular. He's the youngest of 8 brothers. All of his brothers are serving in the military, gaining leadership skills and fighting skills. And he was left home with his dad and maybe his mom, taking care of the family farm, that kind of thing. He shows up on the battlefield one day, slings a rock, knocks down the giant. Now all of a sudden, everybody knows this guy named David. And so here's the question that Saul is left wrestling with. And the question that we're going to wrestle with today: what should you do when someone's better than you? What should you do when someone is better than you? Saul is the king. He wants Jonathan to become the next king. But in rolls David. He gets lucky. He throws a sling, knocks down a giant. All of a sudden, all the radio stations throughout Israel, they're picking up this new pop song, you know. Saul has slain his thousands. David his 10,000s. It drives him nuts. And here's what we're faced with. Here's the reality that Saul is faced with. Saul, he's the king. He's got experience. David is younger. He's shorter. He has less experience. But he's better. I don't know how else to put it. David is better. Have you ever been stuck in that rhythm where things are successful, things are plowing around, and on along comes someone they're just better. They're better than you. I tell you, this happened to me for one time in a big way in high school. I think I brought a picture along of my high school soccer team. Do we have a picture of that? So this is my high school soccer team when I was a senior in high school. I'm kind of in the middle towards the left, that handsome bloke there. So I wasn't very athletic, okay? I ran and stuff like that, but when it came to organized sports, I wasn't coordinated. My brain would tell my body to do certain things that I had seen other people do, and it just wouldn't cooperate. So I wasn't very good at coordination stuff, but I was diligent. I did work very hard. I prided myself in that. I would stay late after practice. I would run drills. During the summer, I would run for miles and miles getting ready for soccer season. I would dribble a soccer ball around my house. I mean, for just tons of time I spent doing that, running drills and just practicing, getting my head in the game. I would stay late after practice and run drills. I mean, I worked very hard. And for 3 years, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, I sat the bench. I paid my dues. Okay, when halftime was coming, I would be over here filling up these little bitty water cups, and the seniors would come off the field, and hey guys, good job, good job. I would try to buddy up with the coach. Coach Rice is over on the left there. He was shorter than the rest of us. We gave him a hard time about that, but I was buddying up with him, and so I became a senior my 4th year of high school, and finally, I was a starter. I wasn't the best starter, but I was a starter. And so all of me and my buddies, Shane and Brett and Kramer, all my buddies, we were starting. I was so excited. And so we had this one game. It was a home game, one of our first home games. And there was an energy. All the parents were in the stand. All the girls were clapping. There was some energy. And Coach Rice wanted to have a word with the starters. And so he said, hey, if you're a starter, come up here and take a knee. I want to talk to you. And so I look over at Brett. I look over at Shane. We stand up as seniors. I take one step, and Coach does this. Yeah, puts his hand on my chest. And he doesn't make eye contact with me. He makes eye contact with a freshman. I'm not going to point him out because I don't want, but it's John. John, who names their kid John, by the way? You flush a John, you port a John, Johnny come lately, just give me your John Hancock or John Doe. I don't know the guy's name. By the way, if your name's John, I'm sorry, I'm just going through a thing here, but John, he barely had peach fuzz. I had paid my dude for 3 years. Let me tell you some things about John. John was shorter than me. He was weaker than me. He had less time on the team as me. He was less experienced than me. And you want to know what else? He was better. He was better. Have you ever experienced someone who, they're just better? You put in the time, you earn the promotion or whatever, but they're just better. I mean, I'm looking around the room here. Oh, I forget to look up here at you guys. I'm looking around the room here, and I see different mothers. Maybe you're a mom. You take care of the kids at home. You're a Navy mom or something like that. Maybe you're this cliquish person. You've gathered these moms together. You go to the park every Friday morning and gather people. There's a new mom in town, a new Navy mom, and I'll take you under my wing. Your kids are cute. You invite her to the park, and all of a sudden, she's the popular one. She shows up with all the snacks, like the homemade healthy ones. She's selling Mary Kay. She's like, I got essential oils. I mean, she's, now listen, you're a good mom. You're a good mom. She's better. And so she's popular. Oh, I'm so glad that Joni's here. I'm trying to think of some name similar to John. I'm so glad that she's here. And man, you earned this spot as the gathering mom. Or maybe you're a company man. You've been working at the company you've been putting in your time for a couple of decades now, just putting in the hours. You hardly take a sick day. You hardly take a day off. You've been telling management you know the problem. You know the fixes. Management, they in their little offices. They don't know what's going on, but you know what's happening on the ground. There's a manager position open up. You throw your name in the hat. You never hear anything, and then one day this kid, half your age, walks in. He's got his kombucha and his avocado toast. He likes to bring his cat to work sometimes, Gen Z or millennial guy. And he starts telling you what to do, and it's like, man, I put in my time here, but he's better. We've all faced this. We've all experienced jealousy. This is not an emotion that we're not unfamiliar with. So what do you do when someone is better than you? Because all of us have been there. Well, in today's text, we're going to see there's two approaches. There's two approaches. We see Saul's approach and we see Jonathan's approach. Let's look at Saul's approach first off. Saul's approach is that of fear. Fear. Look at 1 Samuel chapter 18, starting in verse number 12. I'm just going to read a portion of these scriptures. Saul was afraid of David. Verse 15, when Saul saw that David had great success, he stood in fearful awe of him. Verse 29, Saul was even more afraid of David, and so Saul was David's enemy continually. We move from chapter 17, the David and Goliath, and now we enter a new narrative that lasts several chapters of David versus Saul. Because Saul is afraid. His jealousy causes a fear, and jealousy and fear, those are related emotions. So what is Saul afraid of? And what are we afraid of when we are jealous of somebody? Research tells us that when we're jealous of somebody, there's really two fears going on. The first is a fear of loss. And so Saul is fearing that he's going to lose his position. He's going to lose his crown. He's going to lose the things that come with being a king. And the second thing that he's fearful of, and that all of us are fearful of, is really a threat to our self-image. If Saul is no longer the king, who is he? He's been dreaming of entering the capital city on chariots, and there's his statue, there's Jonathan's statue, there's his grandson's statue. Oh, King Saul, he's been dreaming of this, and if he's not king, who is he? He's just, what's he going to do with his life and with his time? And there's a threat to his self-image. And so let's take a look at how this fear, this jealous fear, again, those things are very related, play out in his life. Look at verse number 9, 1 Samuel 18:9. Saul eyed David from that day on. And the next day, a harmful spirit from God rushed upon Saul. That's kind of strange, a harmful spirit. Just kind of put a pin there or circle that or something. We'll come back to that in a minute. And he raved. This is really bothering him within his house while David was playing the lyre, and as he did day by day. And Saul had a spear in his hand, and Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall. Unfortunately, here we have a case of political violence, which is what we see played out really every day on the evening news, nationally and globally. This is unfortunately not new, that jealousy can incite violence nationally and even globally. But thankfully, David evaded him twice. In verse 12, Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him and had departed from Saul. So Saul removed him from his presence and made him a commander of 1,000. Now, it might sound like he gave him a promotion, but this is actually Saul's way of saying, hey, get this guy out of the palace doing the pencil pusher stuff. Hey, he's not experienced as a commander. Put him in charge of people. Put him on the front line. The Philistines will take him out for me. And David went out and came in before the people. And David had success, actually, in all of his undertakings. Why? For the Lord was with him. And when Saul saw that he had great success, he stood in fearful awe of him. But all Israel and Judah, they loved David. They loved him. For he went out and came in before him. Let's go back to verse number 10. I just want to point out something kind of strange in the text. Verse number 10, it said that there's a harmful spirit that rushed upon Saul. And there's really two interpretations to understand it. There's two ways to understand it. One is that God caused or allowed a demon to possess Saul during this season. Another interpretation is that God caused or allowed Saul to experience misery. Really, is this spirit a actual demonic spirit, some kind of actual demonic force, or is it just like my spirit is stirred within me? And so either interpretation is valid. It doesn't change what happens in the text or what we're going to do with the text. But I'll just point out that personally, I side with interpretation number 2, and here's why. The key is in how you interpret the word spirit. In both the Greek language and the Hebrew language, which are the two main languages of the Bible, pneuma and ruach, in those languages, the word spirit can refer to some kind of actual spirit, the Holy Spirit, or some kind of evil spirit, a demon or an angel. It can also refer to an emotion, the wind. It can refer to breath, and I'll give you some examples of that. God has not given us the spirit of fear, 1 Timothy 1, or the spirit of skill, Exodus 28, or the spirit of jealousy, Numbers 5, the spirit of confusion, Isaiah 19. So there's different ways to interpret that. Either interpretation you come to, this is how Saul finds himself. He's he's just disturbed. This is an oil painting by Ernest Josephson. He's just in total misery because of his jealousy has just eaten him alive. He just thinks about it constantly. Some of you have been there. You can't sleep at night. You're just churning on that person that you're jealous of. Fear causes jealousy, and jealousy causes suffering. If you're taking notes, you can write that down. Fear causes jealousy, and jealousy causes suffering. And we're going to read through the text here, and we're going to notice that there's 3 kinds of suffering that happen because of jealousy. The first kind of suffering is that your mental health suffers. Now, health experts differentiate between mental illness and mental health. Maybe Saul had a mental illness. I don't know. Some people argue that. But we do know that this jealousy is really causing his emotional well-being. His mental health is just, he's raving within his house. He's in total distress. He's eaten up by these emotions. It reminds me of what Shakespeare says in Othello. "Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." Jealousy just kind of eats at you. It's like a green monster that eats at you, right? And so jealousy causes you to suffer. It causes your mental health to suffer. The second thing that suffers is your peers. The people around you suffer when you are jealous. Let's see how this plays out. Look at verse number 17. Then Saul said to David, "Here is my elder daughter, Merab. I give her to you for a wife. Only be valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles." He's using this political talk. For Saul thought, "Let not my hand be against him, but the hand of the Philistines be against him." What we're seeing is he's already roped in some of his staff and some of his army to be a part of his ploy to kill David, but now he's roping in his own daughter, his own family. It doesn't stop there. Look at verse 20. Now Saul's other daughter, Michal, loved David, and they told Saul, and this pleased him. "I can use my other daughter." Saul thought, "Let me give her to him, that she may be a snare for him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." He assumes his daughter's going to be a snare to this guy. He doesn't think very highly of his daughter, apparently. Verse number 23. And Saul's servant spoke those words in the ears of David. And here's how David responds to this. "Does it seem a little thing to you to become the king's son-in-law? I am a poor man and have no reputation." Now, let's just pause there for a second. Why would it matter that he's a poor man? Well, I know we don't do this in today's culture. I'm glad we don't do this in today's culture. But back in those days, if you wanted to marry a woman, you would usually give her father some kind of dowry or a bride price. It was some kind of expensive gift. And so if the girl's dad was a poor man, then, man, you're in luck. You can just bring, I don't know, like a goat or something and give it to him. And, I mean, that's what I gave Anna's dad, right? So, no, I'm just kidding. I did bring him a box of donuts. Remember that? Anyway, that was the day I asked him, "Hey, here's a donut. I want to talk to you about something." But if the girl's dad was wealthy, I mean, the expectation is that, a goat's not going to cut it, man. You got to bring, I don't know, whatever, something bigger, right? And so David's saying, "I'm a poor man. This is the king we're talking about. He's like got a crown and a palace. Like I can't do this." And so here's what happens next. Fair warning. I don't see a whole lot of kids in the room. They're in Rock City or whatever. But if you do have kids with you, just, I don't know, distract them for a second. Look at verse 25. Then Saul said, "Okay, thus you shall say to David, the king desires no bride price except 100 foreskins of the Philistines, that he may be avenged of the king's enemies." Now Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. In other words, tell David, I don't need an expensive dowry. Let's 100 Philistine foreskins, that will suffice. And of course, this is another murder attempt because the Philistines aren't going to willingly hand these things over. So he's going to, I'm sorry, we just got to do it, right? We got to get into the text here. So this is an attempt. What I want you to see is he has roped in his staff, he has roped in his administration, his army, his officials, his own family. He's roped in all these people around him to be little pawns in his game of jealousy and fear. He's tried to kill David so many times, I've lost count. It's like 6, 7, something like that. And so, listen, when you are jealous and not responding to that very well, you cause other people to suffer because you act like a different person. You're not in control of your own, you're not thinking logically. You become vindictive. You start to use people as pawns. You start forming cliques, and you're gossiping. You're asking for inappropriate favors. You start spying. Jealousy does something to you, and not just you. It affects everybody around you. You need to get a hold of your jealousy. You need to get a hold of your fear because that's what's really driving that jealousy. His mental health suffers, and ours does too. his emotional well-being. His peers, everybody around him is suffering because of his jealousy. And then number 3, your reputation suffers. We're gonna fast forward in the text and go to the end of chapter 19. And look what happens in verse number 23. And he, Saul, went from there to Naioth and Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him also. And as he went, he prophesied until he came to Naioth and Ramah. And he too stripped off his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel and lay naked all that day and all that night. Thus it is said, is Saul also among the prophets? There's 3 things I want you to see in, let's leave this up for a second. 3 things I want you to see in this text. Number 1, Saul has completely lost it. And those who are closest to him around him, they've lost total respect for him. His reputation is just in the trash. This guy, this is not working well. They're covering for him, and it's not good. The second thing I want you to notice is what he does with his clothes. Now, the text says naked. In this context, what it probably is meant is that he's taken off his outer garments. He has undergarments on. He's referring to his kingly outfit. He has a robe and a crown. He has taken these things off and just tossed them onto the floor, and he's laying in the fetal position, crying himself to bed at night. Now, I want you to compare this with something. You may have missed this in the beginning of chapter 18. What does Jonathan do in the beginning of chapter 18? He takes off his I almost said priestly, but prince, his garments of being a prince, his royal robe. He takes that off, and what does he do with it? He doesn't drop it. He puts it around David, his belt. He does these kind of things. He's recognizing that God is doing something, and this kid's better. This kid's better. And so he puts that on David. Well, what does Saul do? He takes it off, and he just drops it on the floor, and one day, somebody better than him is going to come pick that up. But his fear has just trashed his mind. His mental health has suffered. His peers have suffered. His own reputation is suffering, all because of his own jealousy and fear. Jealousy is not a good look. It doesn't look good on you. So, what should you do when somebody's better? Maybe you're thinking of somebody right now. We've all been in those experiences. Somebody is better than us. I want you to remember that there are 2 people in this text that have that would understandably be jealous. We have Saul, but we also have Jonathan, who is really poised to be the next king. Let's look at his approach. There's the first approach when someone's better is to fear them and to act out that fear in conniving kind of ways. The second approach is favor. Is favor. That's the approach that Jonathan takes. Look at, move ahead a little bit. 1 Samuel 20, verse 3. This is what David says to Jonathan. He says, your father knows well that I have found, what's the word? Favor in your eyes. Earlier we saw that Saul eyed David with fear. And now we see that Jonathan is eyeing David with favor. Completely different approach. Now, in my opinion, Jonathan has more to lose than Saul. Saul has been the king for several years. He's experienced the wealth. He's experienced the fame. He's experienced the accolades and the leadership. And he's experienced all these things already. And Jonathan has been just dreaming of this opportunity. He goes to bed dreaming about it, thinking about it, talking about it with his dad. He's waiting for that moment. He has more to lose than Saul because he's never going to get that. And instead of fearing loss, though, I want us to look at what happens next in the text. Go back to chapter 19, verses 1. 19:1. And Saul spoke to Jonathan, his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. We saw a second ago that when you are fearful and jealous of someone, it really results in 3 kinds of suffering. We're going to see in just a second that when you act in favor to someone who's better than you, rising in the ranks, rising in popularity, there's 3 gains that you can gain. And here's the first one. There's delight. And so here's the issue that Jonathan is faced with, and here's the issue that we are often faced with. Would you rather lose your promotion or lose your promotion and lose your mind? I mean, this is just, sometimes these are the choices you're faced with. You're going to lose your promotion. Do you also want to go nuts over it too? And so because Jonathan responded in favor, he still lost. He never became king. He still lost. He lost something. When someone's better, you lose something. That's just how it works. But Jonathan did not lose his self-worth. He didn't lose his value, his peace, his security, and who he is as a person, his self-esteem. Because he favored rather than feared, he was able to gain just a delightful spirit, not this harmful, I'm going crazy spirit that Saul had. Let's skip verse 2 and 3 for the sake of time. Look at verse 4. And Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father, and said to him, he's talking to his dad, hey, let not the king, he's speaking third person to him, let not the king sin against his servant David, because he has not sinned against you, and because, look at this, his deeds have brought good to you. When you show favor to someone better than you, here's the second thing you gain, is you gain the goodness that they bring to the table. Listen, here's something we know about David. When David's in the room, it's good. If you go to battle, you want to go with David because things tend to work out. When David's in the room, he's better, but you know what? Things go pretty well when he's around. And so Saul continued to push David away, to keep him at arm's length, to get him out and to throw spears. He was driving him out of the room, and Jonathan is saying, look, if you just keep this guy in the room, things are good when he's here. And when you favor someone better than you, there's, I guess you could call it cascading goodness that comes down from that. You get to enjoy the benefits of that. And Jonathan is like, Dad, if you just put the ego down, nobody gets hurt, right? And so he responds with favor instead of fear. So you get a delightful spirit. There's cascading goodness. You could say, here's the third thing that you might gain. This is not a guarantee, but look at verse 5. He says, for Dad, David took his life in his hands when he struck down Goliath, the Philistine. And the Lord worked a great salvation for Israel. You saw it. You rejoiced. Why then do you sin against innocent blood by killing David without cause? Really, Jonathan has gained a friend. And now, if you're jealous of somebody, I can't guarantee you're going to gain a friend. You may never be friends. You may not get along. But at the very least, you're not going to gain an enemy who's better than you. He responds with favor and not with fear. As I think over this text today, can we go back to the soccer picture, if you have it, if you can find it, the soccer picture. I must admit, I did not respond very well. I did the thing on the bus, and people were coming to me. It was humiliating. Hey, why'd they put that freshman in that John guy? I can't believe they did that to you. I mean, we were having these conversations, and I was trying to manipulate things. I was angry. I did not handle that well. I kind of picked on him. So I did not handle that very well. As I look back and as I think about this text, I think that if I had shown favor to this John, there's two Johns in the story here, I guess, I really believe I would have been a lot happier because I was pretty angry. I was pretty miserable. I believe that I would have looked better. You know, the senior that picks on a freshman, that's not a good look. The senior that takes a freshman under his wing, that's always a good look. My reputation would have been better if I had handled that better. I think the team would have been better. The coach might have put me in. I think I would have worked harder. I would have trained harder. I would have been a better soccer player if I had responded better to that. The coach might have put me in. I might have gained a friend. Probably not. John was kind of a dweeb. But I might have gained a friend. I didn't handle that well. My hope for all of us is that when we experience jealousy, that we will handle those fears, those emotions, the way that Jonathan did. So back to our outline here. What should you do when someone's better than you? You can fear, which is what Saul did, or you can show favor. All of us experience jealousy. Saul was jealous of David. J.R.R. Tolkien, he was friends with him, but he was also jealous of C.S. Lewis. Brett Favre was jealous of Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is jealous of love. Okay, jealousy it's a common emotion. Some of you, maybe you've been a sailor for a while, and you've got 15 years on the job, and in comes someone who's been working it for 3 months now, and they're your superior, and you have to answer to them. That can make you jealous, right? Some of you dads, you're jealous of those rival dads. They act just like Bluey's dad. They're like the perfect dad. They always respond right. All of us experience jealousy in different ways. Are you going to fear, or are you going to show favor? The Christian way to respond, I think, is summed up in response to this text by John Martin, who wrote a book on this topic. He says, it is time to let go of the crown, to give ourselves and our earthly kingdoms away so that we can advance the kingdom of heaven. It's not about my kingdom. It's about his kingdom. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that video was helpful for you, and I also hope that you can come and visit us in person sometime. Lastly, I want to let you know about an upcoming event at our church. It is our annual Hoedown. That occurs on October 15th, and we're going to have plenty of food. There's going to be carnival games, stuff for the kids, stuff for the entire family. I would love for you to be our guest at that event. If you go into the description, there should be a link that shows you more about that Hoedown event. And lastly, as we like to say around here, you are not dismissed, but you are sent. Thank you for watching.